Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit of a story time video, so I thought I'd make it a little bit different from kind of favourites and hauls, etc. and tell you a little bit of a story. So today's story is not a controversial story, but it's something that people are either going to love or they're going to hate. So as you can probably already tell by the title, it is a ghost story. So what I mean by people are going to hate, I know not everybody believes in ghosts. Some people are skeptics and that's fine, and some people love the paranormal and that's also fine. You know, it's each to their own and I'm open to that. So I thought I'd tell you a few little stories about the house I grew up in. So the house I grew up in my parents' house, was a really old house, and there was definitely some weird goings on. Now I think everybody in my house experienced something weird at one point or another. I lived there since I was 3 until I was 20, so I had quite a few years there to experience these things, and my parents still live there now and they're still experiencing things now. The house I live in now is older than my parents' house. It was built in 1600, but do you know what? I've had nothing weird happen here, which when I moved in I thought this would be 10 times worse than there, but actually it's nice and quiet and peaceful, which makes a change. So kind of running through some of the stories, we've had everything in my parents' house, from kind of poltergeist activity to noises, voices, and even full body apparitions. So if I'm starting kind of with disembodied voices and noises first, so we'll start at the lower end of the scale. My bedroom seemed to be the hub of activity for this kind of stuff, and that was quite spooky. I don't know why my room was the place to be. I always used to think it was because the attic opening was in my bedroom, but I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I remember quite a few times being sat down in my front room with my family, and that was directly underneath my bedroom, and so many times we used to hear really clear defined footsteps walk across my bedroom. Now, my old bedroom is carpeted, and these footsteps always used to sound like they were walking on a wooden floor, like on the original floorboards, and they were really clear, and they used to walk from one side of the room to another, and everybody used to hear it and we all used to freak out because everybody would be downstairs. And it's not the kind of house set up where it could have been like a neighbour walking across the floor, because one, she had carpets, and two, she was elderly as well, and these were big heavy boot footsteps, and it always used to freak us out. We always used to have the noises too of like cupboards opening and doors rattling. One day, me and my mum left this camera set up on my tripod, focused down at the dog in his bed, and this was more to do with the fact that he was in a cage and we wanted to see how he behaved when we left the house. Did he howl? Like, did he cry, or did he just sleep? It was nothing to do with looking into paranormal. We just wanted to see how he reacted when he was on his own. And we left the camera set up and we went out. And when I came back, you know, I was skimming through the footage, checking the dog, who was fine, and at one point the dog kind of sat up, and then right next to where the dog's bed used to be, we have this like dresser, and it has the old style kind of handles on the dresser, and I don't really know how to explain them, set there like almost like old door knockers. So if you picked the handle up and dropped it, it would hit the wood on the metal and you'd hear it knock. And Royston sat up, and then you heard that knock, and he looked over in that direction, and that was so strange because we knew nobody was in the house and they can't move on their own. There was no windows open, nothing like that. So that was kind of the only time we caught it on camera, and I don't know where that footage is, otherwise I would insert it, but that kind of freaked us out a little bit. Another quite recent occurrence that we've had in that house is disembodied voices. So my mum experienced it a couple times first, and then I experienced it maybe 4 months ago. My mum said that when she came in the back door, so how our house is set up, we have a front door on the front end of the house, but we have conservatory through the back, and we always go in and out through the conservatory, just because when you're carrying bags, etc., it's easier to go into the back garden in the conservatory rather than into the porch. And she opened the conservatory door, and as she stepped into the conservatory, the door for the kitchen is kind of like on a right angle, and you can't see into the house until you've stepped in. And she could hear voices, and by the time she got to the kitchen, they'd stopped, and I kind of was like, okay. And my mum believes, but she's also kind of skeptical, and she tries to find the logical explanation and debunk everything. And she was like, oh, there was probably people outside, or, you know, there was obviously some sort of external influence, and she kind of brushed it off. And I think she experienced it again later on. But I experienced it once when I went to my parents' house. So my mum and dad were out, my brother was at school, and I popped over for something. I went in through the conservatory and I could hear two men having a conversation, but it was very hushed, and it was very like hurried as well. So it sounded like they were having quite a serious conversation, almost like an argument, but in whisper form. And I thought, oh, okay, they've left the radio on, didn't think anything of it. By the time I got to the kitchen door, it went completely silent, and it was almost like two spirits, whether it was kind of residual or whether the spirits were intelligent, having conversation, knew I was there. It was kind of like the moment I stepped into the house, they stopped. They just didn't want to talk anymore, and I found that really strange, and I thought it was just really interesting how that married up with what my mum had experienced. Kind of moving into the poltergeist activity, a lot of things move in the house, you know, things like keys going from the key rack onto the side overnight. And there was a point about 10-11 years ago where the electric toothbrushes kept turning on by themselves, and I remember being stood on my landing and suddenly hearing the buzz of the electric toothbrushes and running downstairs to get my mum and dad because I just didn't want to go in the bathroom. Another thing that happened quite often were doors used to open. So I wasn't kind of present during the story, I was asleep, but my mum and dad one night came up the stairs and my bedroom door was open, so one of them checked on me, I was asleep in my bed, and they shut the door, went into the bathroom, into the bedroom to get ready for bed, etc. And one of them came out the bathroom and my bedroom door was ajar again. So kind of came over, thought maybe it was me kind of looking out and seeing who was there or something, and I appeared to be asleep in bed, so my parents probably just thought, okay, she's pretending to be asleep again, shut the door. And they both went into the bedroom and said about it, and then one of them heard my bedroom door open, and my bedroom door was on a latch. It was quite a loud metal latch, and it used to creak as the door opened. So they heard it, and my dad came straight out, and my bedroom door was open again, and I was still asleep. And I think this happened 2 or 3 times, to the point where they noticed that maybe it wasn't me opening the door, and they told me about it the next morning, and it freaked me out completely. What happens the most in my mum and dad's house is kind of full or partial body apparitions. Now a lot of people will say, oh, they're really hard, you know, you never get partial body or full body apparitions. You don't get them on camera a lot, but people see them a lot. And they range from everything in my house, from kind of orbs to full body. And I think the most recent paranormal experience that's happened in my parents' house is my mum saw like a black orb, and she was sat in our laundry room. And this was not long ago at all. And out the corner of her eye, she saw a black orb kind of swoop down out of the ceiling, swoop along the ceiling, and then back up in again. And to start off with, she thought it was a bird because of just the dark, dense mass, but then realised the bird couldn't have come in and disappeared like that. And she just said it was like a jet black mass. And none of us have ever seen that before, not a black mass, and that was quite spooky. But things happen quite often. My mum seems to be the magnet for all of this. She was stood at the bottom of the stairs, so the stairs at my parents' house kind of is a normal staircase that goes down, but then it bends around the corner at the bottom and it's walled, so it's not like you can't see halfway up the staircase like my staircase. It's kind of like a corridor, and she leant down the bottom of the staircase to put something on the stairs, and my bedroom door was right at the top, like exactly at the top of the stairs, and my bedroom door was open, and she saw an arm, like in the camera view now, reach across the door like it was grabbing the door handle and come back, but the door never moved. And she said it was like a pale white arm, like a man's arm with like no clothing on, and she went up the stairs and there was no one in my bedroom. And that's quite freaky because, like I said, a lot of it is focused in my room, and I hated that. I hated knowing these stories. And the stairs kind of seemed to be a big player, sort of like a big place where these things would happen all the time. And she'd seen like the back of a child scuttle up the stairs. You know how kids climb up the stairs on their hands and knees? And she'd seen it scuttle up the stairs, and once again checked, wasn't my brother, didn't know what it was. I think one of the scariest things that I've seen, completely the scariest thing ever I've seen in my life, is I came down the stairs one day, and this wasn't too long ago, this is just before I moved out, and I walked down the bottom of the stairs, and when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you turn right, you go through the laundry room into the kitchen, but on the left we have like the downstairs toilet and the office. And I came down the bottom of the stairs and I looked to my left and the office door was open, and my dad was stood with his back to the office door. Because I wasn't moving, wasn't doing anything, just stood in there. And I just kind of gave him the quick glance and then carried on through the kitchen. Now, the really important thing to remember in this story is the way their house is set up. You can't get from the office to the kitchen without walking the way I walked, and there was no way that my dad ran past me, I would have seen him. I walked into the kitchen, my dad was stood in the kitchen cooking dinner. And I said to Dad, were you just in the office? And he was like, no. So I ran back to the office and there was no one in there. And I think that the scariest thing for me was how, like, this apparition was completely solid. Like, no doubt I thought it was my dad just straight away. But if it could take the form of my dad in the back, I always used to think, what did it look like in the front? Like, I'm so glad that I didn't call out to it, that it didn't turn around, because I would have been terrified probably at what I'd seen. And I've done some research, and these things are called like doppelganger ghosts, and they're not dangerous, they're not demons or anything, they just take the form of someone else. And that really freaked me out. But I've seen a full body apparition, and my dad's seen a full body apparition, and that's really scary. My dad woke up and saw a little girl at the end of his bed, to the point where he thought it was me, and then she disappeared. And Dad kind of put it down to I was half asleep, was probably dreaming. But I know when I saw mine that I was awake, and it was the middle of the night, and I sat up in my bed, and stood at the foot of my bed was this little boy, and it sounds really cliche and really like made up story, but he was wearing like old-fashioned clothing and like a flat cap. But what I remember, he was kind of like a sepia tone, like he was like brown and white and kind of a little bit see-through, and he kind of looked at me, and I can't remember if I spoke to him or I like rubbed my face or something, and then he didn't disappear, he faded, and that was what freaked me out, and I will never forget that image. So my parents' house was always freaky, or you always had that feeling that you weren't alone, and I still get that now. You feel like maybe somebody's watching you, and you know when you're sat somewhere and someone enters a room and you have this feeling, you can just tell somebody else has entered the room. You used to get that all the time when you were home alone, and it used to freak me out, and the cat used to stare at the wall, the dog used to stare at the wall, you know, and quite often my dogs will bark and go running outside into the garden and start barking, and there's no one there, and their house is like in the middle of nowhere, and it always used to freak me out. And although I love being there, I'm always kind of just on edge. So like I said, when I moved into my new house, I was really, really lucky that it's not like that at all. There's no kind of freaky footsteps, there's no voices, there's nothing. And even though this house is probably twice as old as their house, I'm so thankful that I am alone in this house and not surrounded by ghosts. So if you enjoyed that bit of a story time, even if for you it was just entertainment, or for you maybe it was really interesting and you want to know more, then please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment. If you want to see more of me, then please subscribe to my channel and push the bell button so you're notified. I put videos up every Thursday at 6 o'clock. If you want something to fill the gap, then I put a blog post up every Monday at 7. And all the links for my blog, my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook, all in the box below. And also any more information you might need about me. So like I said, give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment, give me a tweet, and please subscribe, and I will see you next Thursday.